Hey guys, so welcome back. We are still looking at the case of Son Jung Min, the guy who went missing in the Han River. He ended up dead 5 days later, and now the focus is on his friend. He was the last person seen with him, and we got the forensic results now from the police department on Son Jung Min's phone, the phone of the dead boy. The phone that actually his friend Mr. A had in his pocket. But what's weird is that actually the forensics result cast suspicions, in my opinion, somewhere else. So about a week ago, on the 18th, Son Jung Min's father, like I said, he is doing a good job in keeping his son relevant in the media to try to get justice and try to get attention paid to his case, because he seriously thinks that there is some funny business going on. So he is trying to help the investigation any way he can. And one of the ways he did was to release the cell phone records, specifically the data records of his son's cell phone on the night that he disappeared. So if you look at the cell phone records, you're going to see something very interesting, because you're going to see data logs that show usage of the phone, or at least data being sent to and from the phone at times when Son Jung Min was missing. And you have a lot of activities. So in this particular receipt, it shows 1:22 a.m., 1:37. As you look down the column towards the left, right, you can see all the timestamps: 1:42, 1:55, 2:06, 2:16, 2:18, 2:36, 2:49, 3:01, 3:13, 3:19, 3:16, 3:36, 3:57, 3:58, 4:15, 4:23, 4:32, 4:36, 4:52, 4:55, 5:12, 5:15, 5:26, 5:35, and then 11:05. So let's work backwards here. 11:05, the parents said that's when they looked at the phone again to try to see what was going on with their son's life. And so that explains the data usage at 11:05. 5:35, that around that time, that's when the phone was returned to the family. Now, mind you, around 5:30, the father said that he was calling and calling and calling his son's phone, and finally, Mr. A had picked up around 5:30, so that may explain around the 5:28 mark. Now, what's really interesting is that apparently Son Jung Min was missing right between 3:38 to 4:20 a.m., and that is the time when supposedly Mr. A was also asleep. So if this phone was not being used, then it shouldn't show anything between 3:38 to 4:20. But look at all that activity going on between 3:38, you got 3:38, 3:57, 3:58, 4:15, 4:23. So you're seeing a lot of activity and a lot of data and internet usage going on. So the question was, because it wasn't for certain whether or not the phone had to be actively used for this kind of data receipt to pop up. Because, you know, sometimes apps can update on their own automatically. There's background usage. So just because there is a receipt of data on your phone during particular times doesn't necessarily mean that your phone was being used by a person. So they wanted to have some forensic analysis done in order to determine when this phone was being used by a person. So they turned it over to the police. Now, the police did the forensic analysis. So initially, that seems like it makes sense. And I'll tell you what they said as a result. And I'll tell you why I don't think it makes sense. They made an announcement in the morning on May 24th, which was like yesterday. They said that, okay, this phone, it was only used until 1:09 a.m. The last usage record of an internet search was at 1:09 a.m. and after that there's no usage of internet or applications after 1:09 a.m. And that was pretty much the end of the statement. 1:09 a.m., they're trying to establish that 1:09 a.m. was the last time this phone was used. But netizens, and especially the family, they're like, excuse me, what the, hello? So the mom even was like, I have a message from my son around 1:30. Hello? And the netizens were just like, what the heck is the police saying? This doesn't make sense. And then in the afternoon of the same day, the police had to release an additional statement. And if you have ever seen Korean people shucking and jiving, like trying to like wordsmith their way around an excuse, well, this is essentially it. Even Korean people were saying like, when you have to read the statement, you have to have like a Korean expert in etymology to understand the word dancing around that they're trying to say. But essentially, they're saying that, okay, in order to allay the doubts the bereaving family have on the data forensics, right? Gotta put it onto the family as the blame. We've reviewed the results. Calls, texts, and messenger data are separate from internet and app usage. Therefore, this means that the last KakaoTalk message from the phone was at 1:24 a.m. from SJM to his mother, and the last call was at 1:33 a.m. to a Coupang Eats delivery man, which is like an Uber Eats or like Postmates. Hello? What? We didn't even know that they were ordering food at 1:33 a.m., let alone getting a phone call. Where was that announcement in the morning? So you see now that, okay, the police are playing a selective game with information now. And that they were reissuing a statement. Now, they have some questions that they still need to answer, because what about that Instagram post that happened at 1:50 a.m. from SJM's phone? How are you going to do that without data? I mean, did they leave out maybe Wi-Fi? I mean, was there free Wi-Fi, and did they leave that out of the analysis? So now you're parsing through like, okay, we have a situation of like, we've seen this before. Like when people want to cover up something, then they're basically just going to say the truth in a very really narrow format, so that they're still saying the truth, but they're not telling you the whole story. And that's how you get around. That's how you win a legal battle. And especially in Korea, seen it done firsthand. Everybody sees the truth right in front of them, but if you can manipulate the truth on the paper in the legal parameters, like basically what they're trying to do, people are saying, is like, yeah, they're trying to establish time. If you can establish like, well, this person, if they left the tunnel at 4:32 a.m., then, and if somebody said they saw a person jump into the river at 4:40 a.m., then this person cannot be guilty whatsoever. We don't really know what happened or if this person was even involved, but the time just doesn't match, so this person can go free. So that's essentially what it seems like is happening now, with a mysterious thing about like 1:09. So 1:09 a.m. must be significant somehow. There must have been something that happened after 1:09 on that phone, or where he was contacting people 1:09, because when we remember, we were looking at some of the pictures that the witnesses had taken. You saw Mr. A feverishly on the phone. It could have been his phone, it could be SJM's phone, but he was on a phone, and that was 2:18 a.m. So definitely after 1:09 a.m., a phone was being used by Mr. A. So when they say that this data usage on the phone was just like background apps updating, because they quoted the cell phone company. They said, oh, and the cell phone company says that just because there's data usage doesn't mean that phone is being actively used because of the background app update situation. So now this makes me really think that they need to really have taken this phone to the forensic analysis of the cell phone company, not to the police. Because the way that this looks to me now is that somebody had just cleared out the browser history after 1:09 a.m. And then they said, oh, there's nothing on the history of the browser after 1:09 a.m. That's how they were able to say, like, there was no internet searches after 1:09 a.m. and no activity, because that's just like background activity. And then when people are like, yeah, but what about the Kakao Talk messages? And what about the phone call from the delivery man who was probably like delivering chicken or something? They're like, oh, yeah, that's separate. So, yeah, so 1:24 a.m., that was the last Kakao Talk message. And, yeah, and then the phone call at 1:33 a.m. Yeah, yeah. If you see that the police is like sweating like a whore in church on Sunday, then you really have now a problem. We now have a problem, I think, with the credibility of the police. Now, also what's very interesting that they haven't explained is that if it were automatic updates, a ton of automatic updates, well, it seems very convenient that all these automatic updates were happening during this period and then suddenly stopped when they gave the phone back to the parents. Shouldn't the phone continue to be automatically updating when the parents have it? Does the phone magically stop updating when your parents have the phone? They need to explain that part. That doesn't make sense to me. The only way that could sort of make sense is maybe they turned off the phone, then they turned on the phone again at 11:05. Maybe, but if they had the phone on, then definitely I would tell the parents they should probably try to really press the case about the phone, but try to check to see like what has more of a legal significance and take it as a hint, take it as a clue that something must have happened after 1:09 a.m. It must have been some search on that phone after 1:09 a.m. that they do not want you to know about. Now, is it really fair to criticize the police and be skeptical about the police? After all, they are supposed to be our protectors. Well, there is a debate, of course, in Korea. There's always this fight between prosecutors and police, and they're really at it with each other, saying they're both corrupt. And right now, the public sentiment has been against prosecutors, saying that they're essentially tools of the elite and they get everybody off scot-free. And so the public has been a little bit shifting more towards giving police more investigative rights, because in Korea, if you want to investigate a crime, the police can do the initial work, but they can basically, if they do, then they have to pass on everything that they have investigated to prosecutors, and then the prosecutors get to decide what to do with the evidence, whether it's important or not. So if their friend, prosecutor's friend is being investigated and they found some bad evidence, they could be like, oh, well, never mind about this, and no, I don't think that's like that important. And so the police can be really upset. They'll be like, oh, that guy's a criminal and you're just letting him off because you get to decide at the end. So the police are trying to argue for more investigative powers to say, like, okay, if we find something wrong, then the law should stick because we found something that is a crime. Anyhow, so that's kind of like where the debate is. So, but the thing is that it's safer to just hate both of them because they're both corrupt. And the reason why I say that is that the thing that really convinced me about, like, why you should also be skeptical about the police was the Burning Sun incident. Now, if you remember the Burning Sun incident, that got a lot of attention because it involved like a Big Bang member, clubs in Gangnam, drunk girls, drugs, sexual molestation, filming of these scenarios, all of these shocking things. those were, yes, all shocking. But to be really honest, the thing that shocked me the most. Now, you have to remember how this started. The Big Bang, the whole kind of thing about the celebrities getting involved with, like, you know, filming sex acts and stuff, that wasn't even like the original. That only happened like after people started like opening the Pandora's box and they're like, oh my god, there's all this stuff in there. Initially, this was something that had nothing to do with celebrities. Initially, that case was just a guy who went to the nightclub, saw some drunk girl that was looked like she was going to be taken advantage of. This guy, Good Samaritan, went to some of the club staff and said, like, hey, you know, like, this girl looks like she's about to get like raped or something. You know, you maybe want to take care of her. The staff, instead of taking care of the girl, went and took the guy outside, took him to an area where like was dimly lit and started beating him up. And this became like a case where he's like, what the heck is this? And then the police got involved, and then you got to see that the police were on the side of the club, because in Seoul, especially Gangnam, especially if you want to run some of these nighttime businesses, like, you really have to be in with the police. And the police, to be in with the police usually means, like, you know, you give them some like allowances every month. And so the relationship with the police is usually on the side of the business, which basically means that the police are not that clean, you know, so that the police can be swayed. But the thing that shocked me again is that, okay, so then the mom of this guy that got beat up just for trying to save a girl from getting raped or something, went to the police station in that area that's Gangnam, but more specifically it's Yeoksam. They went to that police station, I believe, and she just read the room. She took 1 second to read the room, and she's like, we gotta get out of here, son, because you're not gonna get a fair shake here. All these people, they're bought. We need to go to a different police station in a different part of the town, a different part of Seoul, where they don't, you know, where they're not greased by these people, to get a fair, like, registration of just like what the heck happened. Forget Big Bang, forget all that other stuff. That other stuff was very bad, but that shocked me the most, that a mom would immediately be able to read a situation like that in the police department and know that her son will be mistreated by the police. That shows, that makes a big statement on many levels. That's like experience. That is, I guess, experience. Like, the biggest part of that is experience. I don't know how to explain it, but that's shocking. Isn't that shocking? I think that's shocking. That's shocking that a mother would know immediately that the police would be corrupt. And so she wanted to protect her son by going to a different police station. Anyhow, so what I'm saying is that in this kind of situation, yes, it can be also in the public interest to also be skeptical about the police. We shouldn't be totally unfair about it, and we shouldn't like be, you know, pointing fingers unnecessarily. But has it happened before? Is it possible? And is it a problem in Korea? Yes. And now, with the way that the police responded to this forensic evidence, this so-called forensic analysis, this also makes me very skeptical. I wasn't very pessimistic before, but this, out of everything, actually, this pissed me off the most. And I think this is something that most people would just be like, okay, whatever, alright. But this, to me, speaks the most out of this case. This to me, essentially, more than the shoes, I think this is the smoking gun in terms of, should we now turn up the heat or the volume or be a little bit more attentive to see if there is some sort of manipulation or corruption going on? Because the police do not have to lie about such mundane details if there was nothing wrong. So again, like, the first cardinal rule of being able to see if there is some sort of shenanigans going on behind the scenes, especially when it comes to government or like a police agency, if standard operating procedures are thrown out the window, things that are just normal and shouldn't, you don't have to lie about these things, like these things shouldn't be overlooked, and they're overlooked, then you have that's just a big red flag. Those are all big red flags. And I'm saying that this cell phone thing is a red flag. And yes, I am sorry for kind of criticizing the father before. Yes, but I still do think he is a media hog. But I do commend him a lot for bringing up this cell phone. But I don't know. I think he can, the way that Korean people who know how to game the system operate, I think he can totally be outmaneuvered on this piece of evidence. But if this evidence doesn't stick, at least if I were him, I would take what they are trying to lie about into account and see somehow 1:09 a.m. as very important. What was he looking up after 1:09 a.m.? What were the internet searches, or what data was being used after 1:09 a.m. that was so bad for them to have to put that as the point where they're like, no, the phone wasn't being used, when obviously the Kakao Talk messages were there, and then also there was a phone call. That is very suspect. Okay, so that's the update on the phone forensic analysis. We'll have more on new grainy images, but new very vital images from CCTV that may explain and may prove some very vital details about when and where the two went towards the river. Alright, join us again next time, guys.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.